So often we are reminded about the horrors of apartheid. We are told just how evil certain white people were to black people in South Africa during the years of apartheid. Because of the past evil and horrors, today we as black people are encouraged to never trust, love, or associate with white people, even those who were not even born during the apartheid era. My question is, if these progressive parties want us to hate and be divided from white people who are not even involved with the deeds of the apartheid government, why are they sponsoring the life of someone who is directly linked to the torture and even assassination of black people during apartheid? Before we begin, welcome to Citizen Concerned, where we remind you to beware of the comrades. I'm Katlego and would appreciate it if you subscribed to our YouTube channel, liked and shared this video with other citizens. In the year 1979, the apartheid government's Dirk Coetzee established a death squad consisting of 15 assassins. What was their mission?
Vlakplaas was established in 1979, the brainchild of Security Police Commander Dirk Coetzee. Coetzee commanded the apartheid government's 15-member death squad, a group of elite assassins, and Vlakplaas was their headquarters. The death squad would kidnap anti-apartheid activists and bring them here, where they'd be tortured for information. Some of the farm's most high-profile victims include ANC lawyer Griffiths Mxenge and freedom fighter Simpiwe Mthimkhulu. Many would never leave Vlakplaas, their remains buried, burnt, or even blown up to eliminate any evidence. And all the while, the assassins sat at a fire nearby, drinking and brying meat.
This death squad was not on a mission to torture and kill just about any person or any black person, but rather those who were actively opposing apartheid. So it goes without saying that people like ANC members and other anti-apartheid activists would have been included in the list of targets for these assassins. Even without hearing too many details, I think we can all agree that the deeds committed by Dirk Coetzee and his 15 assassins were absolutely evil, right? Well, there was a man who felt that Dirk Coetzee was not doing enough. Take a look at this.
In 1982, Coetzee was replaced by 33-year-old Eugene de Kock. Nicknamed Prime Evil, de Kock considered his predecessor a coward. Apparently, Coetzee wouldn't get his hands dirty, leaving the actual killing to the men who served under him. Unlike de Kock.
He did not stop there.
A year after his arrival, de Kock took over command at Vlakplaas, and for the next 9 years wreaked death and destruction around South Africa, eliminating enemies of the apartheid state. His unit was also instrumental in turning the country's townships into bloodbaths during the early 90s, all in the hopes of preventing a democratic election. His ability to commit cold-blooded murder with precision earned him the undying respect of those he commanded.
But de Kock was more than just the commander of Vlakplaas. He was behind the so-called Third Force, distributing weapons in KwaZulu-Natal in the 1990s, which led to the deaths of thousands.
He's not just a killer, he was at the forefront of setting this country alight. And he certainly tried his level best to ensure that the 1994 elections will not take place.
Surely, all of this would have angered the ANC and all progressive and revolutionary black South Africans, right? Surely, when they learned about all this, the ANC locked Eugene de Kock up and threw away the key, right? Right? Wrong. Eugene was sentenced to 200 years in prison, but only served 19 years of that sentence. He was then released by the ANC government, but not only that, he was placed in a safe house, given a salary of 40,000 Rand a month and other benefits that amounted to 200,000 Rand per month. all funded by our tax rands, facilitated and authorized by the ANC.
So it has been claimed at the State Capture Commission that government has been bankrolling apartheid assassin Eugene de Kock since his parole. A spy at the State Security Agency has revealed to the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture that up to 200,000 rand was allocated for the upkeep of de Kock. That included a 40,000 rand salary. The affidavit of the spy, known as Mr. Y, was read out while another unidentified spy called Miss K testified. That was for a state-sponsored safe house, she says, and they were talking about where the money went. De Kock, you'll recall, was a police officer who was in charge of the notorious Vlakplaas unit that specialized in executing and torturing anti-apartheid activists. He was paroled in 2015 after having been sentenced to more than 200 years behind bars, and that was in 1996.
I know we hear the word sellout being flown around every now and then, especially when someone does something that does not sit well with the progressives and Pan-Africanists. But sellout seems more fitting in this particular case, does it not? And it makes me wonder, is Eugene de Kock the only person who was torturing and executing anti-apartheid activists under the apartheid government that the ANC government is now funding? Or are there many others that we are yet to learn about?
De Kock was convicted of only 6 murders, but it's widely believed he ended the lives of at least 100 people. When he was arrested in 1994, de Kock was found with 88 mortars, 288 hand grenades, 200 anti-personnel mines, and 250 kilograms of explosives. He was ready to turn South Africa into a killing zone.
MK Party's Jacob Zuma and the ANC claim to do what they do for poor black people. But how do we reconcile their claims with these words from the family members of some of Eugene de Kock's victims?
Let's now speak to some of the family members, and we're very, very happy and honoured to have Catherine Mlangeni here in studio with us. Ma'am Mlangeni, how do you feel? Are you, when there was possibly a chance that Eugene de Kock may come out on parole, how did that make you feel?
Kunezinto eziningi ezingazange zingijabulise nxa ekubekwa njengephepha eliphume ku-17 elithi mina ngiyalangikhubaza kakhulu lelo ngoba mina ngizange ngikusho lokho. Manje ngicela ukuthi ngene ngilungisele lokho nje ukuthi ukwazi ukuthi kusuke lokho ngiqala ukuba ngizokhuluma.
Ngokomndeni nje akuzange kube into enhle lokho okuye kwavela ephephandabeni. Yebo bona bebefikile kodwa akuwona umlayezo lo mama unikezile ukuthi yena nomndeni usebemisela ukuthi bangaxolelana no Eugene. Kukhulu umonakala wenza ukuthi usungakhohlweka ngenxa yokuthi usefuna ushwele yena. Umndeni usolokhu wakhubazeka iminyaka engaka owakhubazeka umndeni kuthi akube mhlambe iminyaka ebe 23 akakaze athi ufisa ukubonana nomzali nabazali bakabheki Mlangeni okanye umndeni wakubuka Bheki Mlangeni, bese kuthi mvanje ngoba usefisa ukuthi akhululwe ebese eqala ukuthi mhlambe uyafisa ukubonana nomndeni wakwaMlangeni wakubuka Bheki. Kithi akuzwakali kahle yonke leminyaka wayekade engafisi na ukuthi ababone noma sokumanje ngoba esefisa ukuphuma.
I have decided to place Mr. de Kock on parole. He has requested that the actual date and conditions of his release should not be made public. I have acceded to this request and plead with members of the media to respect that request.
So you, as the ANC, as Jacob Zuma, as progressive party leaders who claim to be in existence and in power for poor black people, are doing something that is contrary to the wishes of those you are there for, or those you claim to be there for. So tell me, who exactly is a sellout here? Who?
Before 2009, Zuma, as soon as he took power, in 2009, one of the first things he did in the early stages of his presidential office or term of office was to meet with Eugene de Kock. And Eugene de Kock had expressed interest to meet with Zuma because he felt betrayed by F.W. de Klerk and Company and the negotiators, whom he said their hands were full of blood. At the same time, we need to remember that the same de Kock was the one who was handling ANC sellouts, which are generally known as Askaris, those who were turncoats who turned in favor of the apartheid state and were being used, commanded by de Kock, to actually kill more than 100 people on the instructions from above, instructions that would have come from de Klerk and Botha and so on. So it's a bigger picture than just the 200,000 rands a month that we need to reflect on here. There are our elders who are busy crafting the new South Africa need to tell us more about these things.
So you are allowed to not only release from prison, but also give millions to a man who was named prime evil due to the horrors he caused black people during apartheid. But somehow black people who want to associate with and acknowledge the good in white people who are innocent of Eugene's crimes are the sellouts. Is that not a clear example of double standards, of hypocrisy, of being two-faced? I mean, Eugene's crimes of torture and assassination are known. They were laid out at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and he himself acknowledged them. Yet in the sight of people like Jacob Zuma, he deserves to be housed and sponsored by South African taxes. Meanwhile, we are condemned for having cordial relationships with white people who do not even have crimes of not paying traffic fines. And what is happening here? Which standards are we using? Do these rules remain the same for all of us, or are there different sets of rules for different black people? Please, let us know.
However, de Kock was recognized by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as the one man who did everything he could to expose the murderous and systematic violence of the apartheid government.
One could say de Kock just received forgiveness. He received forgiveness, a release from prison for torturing anti-apartheid activists, forgiveness for killing anti-apartheid activists, and even giving weapons to black people of KwaZulu-Natal to equip them to kill each other. But was forgiveness and release from prison before serving his full term not enough? Was it necessary or justifiable to take South African citizens' tax monies and give them to this man as a salary, to pay for this man's lifestyle? I guess we could excuse their decision and say they understood that Eugene was simply doing his job as a government employee. What he was doing at the time was legal under the government in power, but there's a reason why this was a secret even during the apartheid era. It was a secret because it was still illegal to do what he did, even in the apartheid government or the apartheid era. What is not fair is how in 2024, we as black people are made to treat white people who have not committed evil as though they have, while the revolutionary leaders who incite us to do so treat people found guilty of crimes against anti-apartheid activists as dignitaries at the expense of taxpayers. We have white South African citizens who did not torture any black person, who did not kill any black person, who are not asking for 40,000 rand from the government on a monthly basis, who are not asking for taxpayers' monies to fund their lifestyles, and somehow black South Africans are encouraged to hate those white people. The same people asking us to hate ordinary, innocent white people did this for Eugene de Kock, a man named Prime Evil, because of the horrors that he led a team to do while he led by example. Can somebody help me here? Am I missing something?
Jacques Poe has written several books about the horrors of apartheid. He was one of the first civilians, not a victim of or worker at Vlakplaas, who got a horrifying glimpse into its modus operandi. Most of the men working there were drunk half the time, buying chops while they burnt the bodies of the men and women they'd murdered. He says its commander at the time, Eugene de Kock, was a quiet man. He didn't have the face of a monster, yet he killed at least 120 people.
He was a very ominous man because he doesn't appear to be the death squad commander. He wears a very thick pair of glasses, very thick lenses, and he looks a bit like, I don't know, could have been a teacher, could have been an ouderling in the church, certainly not Mr. Primeval as his men called him.
Max de Preer was Jacques' editor at Vrye Weekblad and actually went to Vlakplaas.
He was one of the most ruthless killing machines that we'd ever seen in this country. A frightening man. And when we at Vrye Weekblad exposed Vlakplaas and him in 1989, I think it was, the whole nation stood back and thought, how is this possible?
The people who exposed de Kock were white, and they did it before 1994, so while apartheid was still legal and taking place. Now tell me, progressive parties, leaders and supporters, are we supposed to hate these two white men who wrote about and exposed the death squad that was torturing and murdering anti-apartheid activists, while you give parole to and fund the same evil man that they exposed? How's that supposed to work? In conclusion, my issue is not really about Eugene de Kock, but about the hypocrisy of these politicians deceiving people. They come out wearing t-shirts of slain apartheid activists, but use state resources to fund the life of someone who did the killing of some of those apartheid activists. They forgive and reconcile with white people who were actively involved in the torture and murder of black people, but discourage us from loving and having fruitful, meaningful relationships with white people who had nothing to do with hurting black people. Let the standards be set, be known by all and followed by all, because all this hypocrisy and double standards are honestly disgusting and tiring. I know that so many people rush to say that I'm doing this because I am DA or that I am being paid by the DA or some white people. And that too shows how successful the propaganda of the Comrades has been. Without any evidence, you as a citizen want to paint your fellow citizen in a dark way simply because I am showing you the failings and dangers of the Comrades who have been in power and those who strive for it. Instead of listening and evaluating what I say objectively, you dismiss me, name-call me using the same insults often uttered by the Comrades, and to you have done a great job. The only job you've played well is that of a modern-day Eugene de Kock, assassinating the characters of those who challenge your leaders, whether they are right or wrong to do so. Look in the mirror. You are your own worst enemy. Thank you so much for watching. If our content is to your liking, please like, subscribe, and share the video with others. I'm Katlego. This is Citizen Concerned. And until next time, beware of the Comrades.